We're going to talk more about contracts on this segment of the Gig Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Much is said about contracts, at least among us Sprinter/cargo van owner operators. And for that matter, you can say anyone who is really serious about doing delivery work. And for that matter, any type of independent contractor, self-employed business operation. I understand that contracts are important because the relationship you establish directly with a customer is what builds your business. I understand that. Now, it's also my observation that just the mere topic of contracts, it's kind of a sexy thing, especially among Sprinter/cargo van drivers, because it's supposedly the sexy thing next to driving over the road. You get your van, then you're looking for load opportunities to hit the road. Well, what are some of the good things about contracts? Well, it's my impression, it's my observation that one of the good things about contracts is that it shows you're making progress with your business. It shows that you are putting in the effort to build your personal enterprise, building your brand, establishing relationships with other customers directly, as opposed to perhaps working, cultivating your opportunities through gig delivery apps or whatever other means possible, there being load boards. It's also a means of more consistent income. I get that. And it's also just knowing that you've got contracts, it's a way of being able to anticipate certain moves that you can make, knowing that you can kind of you may not mark it in ink though, but you can kind of pencil in some directions that you'd like to go or things that you need to take care of along the way. And then also contracts put you in a position to where when things are slow, you know that you got something coming in, and so you may not worry as much. You may not sweat it out as much. Contracts are a way of knowing that you've got something to fall back on. So I get all those things. So while contracts may produce a sigh of relief in that regard, contracts can also be stressful. How can contracts be stressful? There's the obligation that you've got to meet with your contract. There's the obligations of making sure that the routes your routes are covered, your deliveries are covered, and making sure that your vehicles are in operational condition to meet that obligation. Then there's the other part of it. The other part of it is the concern about the other side. Number one, you can be underbidded by something. You can be underbidded by competition. A contract may be put up for bidding, and basically the way bids go, the lowest man wins. Or your contract may come under review based on performance, based on reliability, and you may lose that contract. So there's a possibility of losing a contract just as easy as it is to gain the contract. But then there's another aspect of contracts: getting paid. While you agree to do your part of the agreement, while you are concerned about doing your part of the agreement, you also got to be concerned about the other person. Will they fulfill their part of the agreement by providing you route opportunities or paying you when they said that they're supposed to pay you? And that can probably be even more stressful. Now, I know I've talked about 5 minutes or so, and this is my usual line though, but if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I've seen it firsthand about contracts and business relationships where when one part of that equation starts running slow or it becomes non-existent, it can create a train wreck of a situation very fast. Now, the example that I think of is when I was doing primarily life health business as an insurance agent. So that meant that I went after group clients, mostly group clients, businesses to set up their benefit programs, their group medical, group dental, short and long-term disability, their AFLAC, their vision, group life, things like that. Back around between 2005 and 2008, that was like really my highest earning period as an agent. And there was one customer that put me in that position. In fact, the money that was coming in every month with that customer accounted for more than half of my income. And so if they called, I jumped. It was just a matter of how high would I jump for them, because they were my big client. And when you're, at least back in that era, when you're dealing with group health, the most coveted client was those with 50 or more employees, because number one, in order to quote them, you had to get an agent of record letter. And without that agent of record letter, you couldn't quote them. At least that's the way it was back then. And so when I was able to get their group medical, things really kicked for me in my agency. In fact, I'd gone 2 years, 2 very lean years, 2 very destitute-like years prior to getting that customer. And so moving forward, the crazy thing about that customer was that for as long as they were my customer, which is for over 3 years, they struggled mightily to pay their premiums every single month. And so I can't tell you how many times that I wrote letters or wrote emails to the health insurance company here in South Carolina. I've never mentioned their name, but if you're in South Carolina, there's basically one company, even though there's 2 companies, but they're all under the same roof. Moving on, I can't tell you how many months I wrote emails or letters explaining their situation to the accounts manager, and it seemed like every single month I would come by. Whenever they saw me, I saw them more than anybody else, because they would also entrust me to take that check personally over to that building and put it in the hand of the account manager to ensure that it would be credited that day so that they can continue to have coverage. And all that is to set up. Part of the reason why they struggled so much is because they had to collect from they would have to collect from the people that had not paid them. And when people aren't paying, guess what? You've got to cover that one way or another. I mean, either you've got to have the money on hand to meet your payroll or meet your monthly obligations, whatever your expenses are. And until that money comes in, guess what? You're sweating it. Now, all that is really to set up my personal situation. In fact, in recent weeks, some of you who have been frequent viewers of the Gig Geezer channel, you've heard me make shameless plugs about my dealing with OneRail. OneRail is an app-based logistics, final mile logistics business, and basically they're the ones who are aggregators who match people like me and me and many others who work these apps. They match me with other carriers, the carriers being like DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, Freight, Point Pickup, for example, those apps. So they match me with those apps in terms of gig delivery opportunities, and then there's also a direct contracts with them in which some of that flow, some of the flow of orders can come to me, and then I can dispatch those opportunities to other drivers. Well, one of the things that was shared with me right from the beginning with OneRail was that when it comes to pay, you're going to wait 30 days. You're going to have to wait 30 days before you get paid. Well, I went active with them on April 10, 2023. Well, today is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. I've yet to get paid. And I have, within the past week, sent a couple of emails to that extent, bringing it to their attention. Hey, okay, what's going on with the pay? You told me one thing, but it's been another thing, and now it's another thing. And I've yet to pay. I've yet to see any money for the deliveries that have been completed by my vendor account. But yet, now I'm having to pay drivers out of my pocket to make sure that at least I fulfill my end of the bargain with the people that have agreed to come onto my team. And that's my situation. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, what's OneRail? Because I know when you mention certain places, I know that what I'll do is I'll look it up and see if they're looking for drivers in my area and all that stuff. And but OneRail is based out of Florida, namely the Orlando, Florida area, and they've been in existence since 2018. And they have at least, depending on what source of information you obtain out there on the internet, they are a fast rising company, and they have been acclaimed as a fast rising company. Well, one other thing that's of note is that in December of last year, they got a $33 million cash infusion by an investor to help them bolster their operations. And I recall I first approached them back in December 2022, not knowing anything about this $33 million. But what had happened was I completed a delivery here in the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area. I asked a couple of questions. They said OneRail, and so I looked them up, and I tried to get on as a driver. Well, the person whom I dealt with through a couple of emails eventually told me that they weren't interested in those of us with sprinter/cargo vans. They wanted people with box trucks or larger equipment. So I went on about my business, trying to get things going, as I still have. And a couple months later, I tried again, and this time I got some traction where someone eventually made contact with me. We talked over the phone for a while, and they wanted to move forward with me getting contracted with them. I filled out a carrier packet. I showed proof of insurance with what we call in the court 25 form, or what is called a certificate of insurance, and also named them as a certificate holder. Being a certificate holder just means that they will know if I fail to maintain insurance coverage as required. We agreed, or I told them that I would be willing to go online April 10 of this year, and that same week, my account, myself and another person, we completed some orders, and since then I've added drivers on. In fact, as late as last week. So that's the background of my situation. That's also the background of why I've done this segment of the Gig Geezer. Not so much as to put these guys on blast, but I want to use my experience to kind of let you know that while contracts are fine, contracts are important in terms of building one's profile, building one's business. There's another part of contracts. And another part of contracts is dealing with when people don't pay you when they're supposed to. Now, in my situation with OneRail, we're talking about a few $100s. We're talking about $700 of deliveries that have been completed over the last 6 weeks. and I've owed a couple $100 to drivers. We're talking about 5 drivers total. I have paid 2 of them. In fact, they may be finding out about this for the first time and all, but I've paid 2 of them so far out of my pocket. And basically, next week, there will be another driver whom I'll have to pay. Actually, there'll be 2 drivers that I'll have to pay next week, and then there's 1 more driver after that. And the reason why I am paying them out of my pocket is because bottom line is, hey, I'm keeping my end of the deal. And what I'm also doing is basically removing one part of the equation so that I deal. Basically, the reason for me paying them out of my pocket is because I told them, hey, look, you should be expecting to see your money 1 month after completing the work. That's what OneRail told me in the beginning. But then what I found out later, it's 1 month after the 1 month after you invoice them for that money. So that means basically we're talking a 5-week cycle, but it may be best case scenario 5 to 6 weeks afterward. And really, who is really wanting to wait 5 to 6 weeks for money, particularly when it comes to the gig economy? Now, I know of my personal experience prior to getting a Sprinter/cargo van, with me running out of my F-150. To that point, over 90% of my money was made through DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, Instacart, ShipIt, or Waiter/Bite Squad/ASAP. And the beauty of all of those apps is the fact that I could cash out every single day on all those apps. And we're talking about $6,000 a month that I was able to cash out on very frequent intervals. And so that's how I've managed my stuff. But as I've gotten a Sprinter/cargo van, and I've been dealing with more last mile type places, not all of the last mile places pay every day. You've got places where they pay once a week. You've got places that pay twice a month. And then you got places that pay once a month. And that place that pays once a month is one that I've been kind of making shameless plugs about, and that's OneRail. And the truth of the matter with OneRail is that I have completed deliveries over a 6-week stretch, and I have yet to see anything from these people. Nothing. Although I've been in conversation with them over the phone now, and I have sent multiple emails, including one as late as yesterday, Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. Now, again, this is the other side of contracts. When you deal with people who are slow with paying you, they tell you one thing, but then you're finding out something else. But yet you have to ask yourself, do you still want to honor your end of the contract? And how far in do you want to go with this, to the extent that you're going without being paid? Now, my initial strategy was to do this for a month on my own to see how it works, and then bring in people. But as it turned out, the same week that I went live, there was a guy who did a couple of deliveries for me, and a couple of deliveries only, and then the week later, the following week, another guy came, did a couple of deliveries. In fact, he did 3 deliveries total. And then a week or so after that, another guy came on. He did a couple of deliveries. And then another person has done some deliveries for me. And now, most recently, another guy's done deliveries for me, in which I've dispatched opportunities to them. I should say it like that. I had dispatched opportunities to them in which they completed from my vendor account. Now, the reason why it kind of went like that is because with this being app-based, number one, but number two, I'm also dealing with an algorithm. The algorithm such that the algorithm kind of affects how you do things, because If the algorithm sees that you are completing deliveries, then you know you should be seeing a steady stream of orders coming across your phone screen. Well, most recently in a Gig Geezer segment, I pointed out how after a phone call with OneRail, the deliveries just stopped. I saw 3 for the rest of the day. I saw 10 the next day, and then 6 the following day, and then on the day after that, I saw 1 total. Now, I've seen some deliveries come across my screen this week. In fact, I dispatched one out to a driver, but in the last day or so now, in the last couple of days, I've not even bothered to look at the fucking app or even turn on the fucking app because I've not gotten paid. So it's like, why put myself out there by completing deliveries? And hell, I don't even know if I'll ever get paid on these son of a bitches. Okay. And so, now again, I'm talking about like $725 worth of deliveries that have been completed. I can deal with $725 because that's less than 10% of what I've made each month so far in 2023. It's less than 10%. But it's just a mere fact, or the mere principle, that I'm having to pay people out of my pocket when I shouldn't have to, if people do what they're supposed to do. That's the other part of it. And so, hopefully I've provided some information. Hopefully I've provided some insight. Hopefully I am, providing you a perspective on things that is very realistic and something that you can apply to your personal situation. And with that, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane, and as always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.